If you look at the architecture of modern enterprise security, we spend, millions on perimeter defenses. We deploy advanced endpoint detection, we segment our networks, we implement zero trust policies, and encrypt our data.
Right. We build this absolute fortress.
Exactly. But after building this massive fortress, the primary mechanism we use to grant access is, well, just a string of text that a human being has to somehow memorize.
It's a glaring contradiction, really.
It totally is. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, our mission is to explore a fascinating set of materials from BlokSec detailing this framework called Immutable Passwordless Authentication.
Which is such a critical topic right now.
Absolutely. And the foundational statistic our sources highlight just sets the stage perfectly. Over 80% of data breaches involve stolen or weak credentials.
Yeah, that statistic really forces a reevaluation of our entire approach to security.
80% is huge.
It is. Because the perimeter isn't failing, because our encryption algorithms are mathematically flawed,
Yeah.
right, or because our firewalls are misconfigured.
So what's actually happening then?
Well, the perimeter is failing because attackers aren't breaking in. They are simply logging in. Traditional credential-based authentication is just fundamentally compromised.
And this has massive implications for you listening right now. Whether you are a security architect trying to lock down a sprawling hybrid environment or an IT director tired of allocating like 20% of your help desk budget to password resets.
Or even just an end user navigating a dozen different complex login portals every single day.
Right, we all feel that pain. So this deep dive is going to unpack how this paradigm shift actually functions in practice. We are looking at how BlokSec completely obsoletes the password.
To really appreciate the architecture of this solution, we have to look closely at the mechanics of the vulnerability first.
Okay, let's break that down.
So the core flaw with passwords is that they are what we call a shared secret.
Meaning, I know it, and the website knows it.
Exactly. The user knows the password and the server knows it, or at least it knows the mathematical hash of it. And because that secret exists in two places and has to be transmitted over the internet, it's vulnerable at multiple points in its life cycle. It can be intercepted, guessed, or just extracted through social engineering.
Using a password is essentially like handing a bouncer at a club a photocopy of your ID.
That is a great analogy.
Right, because anyone can make a copy of that piece of paper, and if someone steals your copy, they can just walk right in pretending to be you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And immutable authentication, as we'll see, is more like the bouncer checking the unique, unforgeable holographic watermark embedded in the plastic itself.
Oh, I like that. You can't just text that physical watermark to a hacker.
You physically cannot.
But I want to introduce some friction here because I know a lot of organizations believe they've already solved this shared secret problem.
Yes, the multi-factor authentication argument.
Exactly. We rolled out MFA, we have authenticator apps, we get push notifications, SMS codes. Doesn't MFA neutralize this whole credential theft issue?
That is definitely the most common defense you hear. But the reality is that traditional MFA has been thoroughly commoditized by threat actors.
Wait, really? Commoditize?
Yeah, completely. Attackers have evolved their tooling to bypass it entirely, primarily through something called adversary in the middle, or ATM phishing kits.
Okay, let's unpack the mechanics of an ATM attack for a second. How does that actually bypass a push notification on my phone?
It's all about reverse proxies. In a traditional phishing attack, the criminal sets up a fake website to harvest your password.
Right, the classic fake login page.
Exactly. But in an ATM attack, the criminal sets up a proxy server that sits directly between you and the legitimate service, say your Microsoft 365 login.
Okay, so they're intercepting the traffic in real time.
Yes. When you type your password into the fake site, the proxy instantly passes it to the real Microsoft server. Microsoft then triggers the legitimate MFA challenge to your phone.
Oh, wow, so I get the real prompt.
You do, and you, believing you are logging in legitimately because you just typed your password, approve the prompt or type in the 6-digit code. Then the proxy passes that approval back to Microsoft.
And Microsoft validates it and generates a session cookie, right?
Correct. And here's the critical vulnerability. The proxy intercepts that authenticated session cookie before passing it back to your browser.
So the attacker doesn't even care about the password anymore.
They don't care at all. They have the active authenticated session cookie. They can just inject that cookie into their own browser and have full access to your account, completely bypassing the MFA you just approved.
That is terrifying. And there's also the psychological angle here too, right? Which the sources refer to as MFA fatigue or prompt bombing.
Oh, yeah. That relies purely on human exhaustion.
Like getting spammed at 3 in the morning?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Attackers script thousands of login attempts in the middle of the night. Your phone buzzes with an approval request 50 times at 3 a.m.
And eventually you just wake up groggy and tap approve just to make the buzzing stop so you can sleep.
Right. The human element is always the weak link in any system that relies on a user making a real-time security decision based on a prompt.
That makes total sense.
Furthermore, traditional MFA introduces severe operational friction.
How so?
Well, if we look at frontline, high-turnover staff like nurses in a sterile environment or warehouse workers operating heavy machinery, they simply cannot pull out a smartphone every time they need to access a terminal.
Which brings us to the core shift BlokSec proposes, this idea of immutable passwordless authentication.
Yes, the real paradigm shift.
So let's define the terminology for everyone. When we say immutable in the context of identity, how does that fundamentally differ from the shared secrets we've just been talking about?
Immutable means the credential cannot be altered, stolen, or replayed, period.
Nothing to steal, nothing to phish.
Exactly. We are moving away from an identity based on something you know, like a password, to an identity based entirely on cryptographic proof.
Cryptographic proof. Okay, break that down for us.
It utilizes public-private key cryptography, leveraging the hardware enclaves that are already built into modern devices.
So similar to the trusted platform module on a Windows machine, or the secure enclave on an iPhone.
Yes, exactly those. A private cryptographic key is generated and stored permanently within that secure physical hardware.
And it can't be taken out.
No, it physically cannot be exported or extracted, even by the operating system itself.
Wow. Okay.
When you attempt to authenticate, the server issues a mathematical challenge. Your device uses its private key to sign that challenge and sends the signature back to the server. The server then validates it using your public key.
The crucial distinction being that the private key itself never actually travels across the network?
Never. The secret stays locked in the silicon on your device.
So because the secret never crosses the wire, there is literally nothing for an adversary in the middle proxy to intercept.
Exactly. A phishing site cannot trick you into handing over your private key because you literally do not know it yourself.
Right, it's just math happening in the background.
And the hardware enclave will actually refuse to sign a challenge from an unregistered or fraudulent domain anyway.
It effectively neutralizes phishing at the architectural level. That's incredible.
It really is.
And looking at the business implications here, I mean, the ROI calculation changes dramatically when you eliminate shared secrets. If there are no passwords, you eliminate password resets.
Right, which is a massive cost center.
Yeah, help desk ticket volume plummets. You aren't paying expensive engineers to unlock accounts on a Monday morning because someone forgot their password over the weekend.
The overhead reduction is huge.
But the cryptography makes sense in a vacuum, right? The challenge with security is always deployment. The moment you force a hybrid employee to navigate complex key exchanges, they'll just find a workaround.
Oh, human nature guarantees they will find a workaround.
Right. So how does BlokSec hide that cryptographic complexity from a user who, just wants to check their email?
That transition from theory to practice is where BlokSec's product suite comes in, starting with a product called BlokKey.
Okay, BlokKey.
This is their solution for the modern hybrid knowledge worker. It basically leverages the smartphone the user already has in their pocket as the primary authenticator.
So the private key lives in the secure enclave of the user's personal or corporate phone?
Correct. But possessing the device isn't enough on its own.
Because if the device is lost or stolen, someone else has it.
Exactly. We need a secondary mechanism. This is where BlokKey introduces biometric presence and intent confirmation.
Let's dive into that concept, because the distinction between possession and intent is one of the most critical takeaways from these materials. What is the functional difference there?
It is a massive differentiator. Possession just means a machine has access to a token. For example, if malware compromises your laptop, it has possession of your session cookies.
Right, it can just automate actions in the background without you ever knowing it's happening.
Exactly. Intent, however, requires real-time, physical, human validation.
Okay, so how does that look in practice?
When a BlokKey authentication request is triggered, it doesn't just passively ping the phone in the background. The user must actively engage, usually by looking at the phone for Face ID or utilizing a fingerprint scanner, specifically for that single transaction.
So the hardware enclave won't sign the cryptographic challenge unless the biometric sensor confirms a live human is actively authorizing that specific request at that exact millisecond.
Yes. And that completely breaks the automation chains that attackers rely on.
Because an attacker halfway across the world cannot spoof your physical face looking at your phone.
Right? They cannot automate physical intent. It's impossible.
I can totally see how that secures the user. But from an architectural standpoint, how does a company actually integrate this? I imagine enterprise IT departments aren't eager to rewrite their entire application logic to support a new proprietary cryptographic handshake.
Oh, they definitely aren't, and they don't need to. That's why BlokSec utilizes established identity protocols. BlokKey integrates via SAML, OIDC, WS-Fed, and FIDO2.
Okay, lots of acronyms there, but
Yeah.
meaning BlokKey essentially slots in as the primary identity provider, or IDP.
Yes, exactly. Whether your organization uses Microsoft Entra ID, Okta, or Ping Identity, BlokKey integrates seamlessly with those existing IDPs.
So the apps themselves don't have to change.
The applications themselves don't even know BlokKey is involved. They just receive the standard SAML assertion from the IDP confirming the user is authenticated.
That makes adoption so much easier. But wait, what happens in an edge case?
What kind of edge case?
Say I am on a transatlantic flight, my phone has no Wi-Fi, no cellular service, and I need to authenticate into a local application on my laptop. If I can't receive a push notification from the cloud, does this whole immutable architecture just break down?
No, actually, it handles that gracefully through offline challenge response mechanisms.
Oh, really? How does it do that without a network?
Even without network connectivity, the laptop and the phone can communicate locally. Often this is done via Bluetooth Low Energy or by having the laptop display a QR code containing the cryptographic challenge.
Okay, so the phone scans the screen.
Yep, the phone scans it, signs it offline using the secure enclave, and then displays a one-time cryptographic signature on the phone screen that the user types into the laptop.
That is really elegant. It maintains the cryptographic integrity without relying on continuous cloud connectivity.
Exactly. The mathematical proof of possession and intent is still validated locally.
And because of that deep cryptographic integration, the logging capabilities are substantially upgraded too. The sources highlight something called non-repudiable logs.
Non-repudiation is basically the holy grail for compliance audits.
Why is that?
Well, in a password-based system, a log simply tells you that a specific password was used. It does not guarantee who actually typed it.
Right, it could be a hacker or a coworker you share it with.
Exactly. With BlokKey, because the authentication requires a biometric signature linked to a specific hardware enclave, you can prove with absolute mathematical certainty that the specific human being was physically present.
That's huge for compliance. So, okay, we've solved the friction for the knowledge worker sitting at a laptop with a smartphone. But let's transition to a much harder problem.
The frontline workers.
Right. BlokKey is pretty useless in environments where smartphones are prohibited or just impractical. The sources specifically call out healthcare, manufacturing, hospitality, and retail.
You cannot ask a clean room technician or a forklift operator to manage a personal smartphone for corporate authentication.
It just doesn't work.
And this is a historical blind spot in cybersecurity.
Mm-hmm.
The industry has struggled for years to provide authenticators strength security to users who don't have personal devices on them.
The legacy approach was issuing those RSA hard tokens, right? Those little plastic key fobs that generate a random 6-digit number every 60 seconds.
Yes, and those introduce massive administrative overhead.
I can imagine.
Hard tokens suffer from clock drift. The batteries die, they're expensive to replace, and managing the physical inventory for thousands of temporary contractors or seasonal warehouse workers is just a logistical nightmare.
It really doesn't scale at all.
It doesn't. And BlokSec addresses this specific friction point with their second product, which is called BlokBadge.
BlokBadge. Okay, how does that work?
It is a deviceless, immutable solution designed explicitly for frontline and transient workforces.
Deviceless. So if the user doesn't have a phone and they aren't using a password, how is the cryptographic proof generated?
Through a combination of a physical QR badge and a local hardware interaction.
Okay, walk me through the user experience.
The user is issued a physical badge with a unique QR code on it. And this isn't just a static identifier, it actually contains a cryptographic seed.
Got it.
When the user approaches a shared workstation, they present the badge to a standard, inexpensive webcam or barcode scanner.
But wait, a QR code on a piece of paper is inherently a static secret, isn't it? Anyone could just take a photo of it with their phone. How does that avoid the photocopy of the ID vulnerability we talked about earlier?
Because scanning the badge is only the first step of a local cryptographic process.
Oh, I see.
The QR code identifies the user and provides the seed, but the system requires a step-up authentication. The user then enters a secure, memorable PIN directly into the workstation, or they use a biometric scanner attached to that specific terminal.
Okay, let's look at the mechanics of that. If I type a PIN into the workstation, isn't that just another shared secret being sent over the network?
This is where the architecture is brilliant. The PIN is never transmitted over the network.
Really? How does the server know it's right then?
The local software agent on the workstation takes the cryptographic seed from the QR badge and mathematically hashes it together with the PIN you just typed.
Ah, okay.
This local computation generates the actual cryptographic key, which is then used to sign the server's challenge.
So the server validates the resulting signature, but the server itself never stores or even sees the raw PIN.
Exactly. It achieves what we call zero-knowledge proof.
That's fascinating.
If an attacker intercepts the network traffic, they see nothing but a mathematical signature that is only valid for that single isolated session.
Wow, and what if someone steals the physical badge?
If someone steals the badge, it is completely useless without the PIN.
Yeah.
And if someone oversees the PIN, it is useless without the physical badge.
And from an IT perspective, the cost and flexibility metrics are incredible here.
Oh, it's night and day compared to hard tokens.
Right, because if a seasonal worker drops their hard token in a warehouse, that's a $50 replacement and a complex provisioning process.
Not to mention the downtime for the worker.
Exactly. But if they lose a BlokBadge, the IT administrator revokes the old QR seed in the admin portal in like milliseconds and simply prints a new QR code on a standard piece of paper.
Yes. You achieve hardware-level cryptographic security using commodity peripherals like standard webcams and printers.
It really democratizes zero trust architecture. It acknowledges that a retail associate accessing a point-of-sale system requires the same level of cryptographic protection as the CEO accessing financial reports.
And it delivers that high-level security without impeding their workflow at all.
So we've established a secure perimeter for modern applications using BlokKey, and we've secured the front line with BlokBadge.
Right.
But any security architect listening right now knows we are completely ignoring the elephant in the room. Technical debt and localized on-premise silos.
The legacy infrastructure, it's always the hardest part.
Always. You can deploy modern SAML-based identity across your entire cloud environment, but there is always that one critical 20-year-old database or an ancient ERP system that natively requires a typed password.
Oh, absolutely. It doesn't understand SAML. It has no idea what an identity provider is.
And to make matters worse, these legacy systems often rely on shared service accounts, right? Like a team of 5 engineers all need access to the admin root account, so they just store the password in a protected spreadsheet and copy-paste it when needed.
Which is terrifying, because if you secure 99% of your attack surface with immutable cryptography, but leave the core database accessible via a shared password in an Excel file, the entire zero-trust model collapses.
It totally does. So how does BlokSec bridge that gap? How do you apply immutable passwordless principles to software that fundamentally, at a code level, demands a password?
This brings us to the third component of their platform, which is BlokSafe.
BlokSafe, what does that do?
Think of BlokSafe as an enterprise credential vault, but it's architected to operate seamlessly behind the passwordless perimeter we just established.
So it's essentially credential injection.
Precisely. BlokSafe takes all of those legacy credentials, the shared service accounts, the database passwords, and encrypts them at rest within its vault.
Okay, so they are locked away.
Yes. When an engineer needs to access that legacy ERP system, they do not go and look up the password.
So they authenticate into BlokSafe using their BlokKey or BlokBadge instead.
Yes. The user proves their identity cryptographically to the BlokSafe platform. Once authenticated, the user selects the legacy application they need.
And then what happens behind the scenes?
BlokSafe decrypts the legacy credential in memory, establishes the session, and seamlessly injects the password directly into the legacy application's login sequence.
So the end user never actually sees, touches, or knows the underlying password at all.
They remain entirely blind to the secret. And if the user doesn't know the password, they cannot write it down on a sticky note.
They can't share it over Slack.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And most importantly, they cannot be tricked into entering it into a phishing site.
You have successfully wrapped a vulnerable legacy authentication mechanism inside a modern, immutable cryptographic shell.
It's a very elegant bridge between the old world and the new.
And that solves the shared account auditing nightmare too, right?
Oh, completely.
Because if 5 people use the admin root account today, legacy logs just show that the account logged in. They don't tell you who.
Right. There's zero individual accountability.
But with BlokSafe, because the user had to use their biometric BlokKey to trigger the injection, your security information and event management logs will show exactly which human being initiated that session.
It brings absolute accountability to legacy systems. It basically allows organizations to achieve a fully passwordless environment today without waiting a decade to refactor their entire legacy codebase.
It's a highly pragmatic approach to enterprise architecture.
It really is.
Well, let's pull this all together. We have explored a fundamental evolution in digital identity based on BlokSec's framework today. We started by diagnosing the fatal flaw of the shared secret and how traditional MFA is easily bypassed through ATM proxies and fatigue attacks.
We then unpack the mechanics of immutable passwordless authentication, shifting from vulnerable knowledge to cryptographic proof of possession and intent.
Right, we looked at BlokKey, integrating seamlessly with existing SAML and OIDC infrastructure to secure the hybrid workforce.
And we explored BlokBadge, utilizing clever local hashing of QR seeds and pins to deliver deviceless cryptography to the frontline workers.
And finally, BlokSafe, using credential injection to drag legacy technical debt into the zero trust era. It really represents a unified identity fabric that closes the credential vulnerability gap entirely.
By removing the shared secret from the equation, you eliminate the primary attack vector that cybercriminals have exploited for decades. The attack surface fundamentally changes.
Which leaves us with a compelling philosophical shift to consider as we close out this deep dive. For our entire digital lives, identity has been defined by the secrets we keep.
Very true.
Our ability to access our data, our finances, and our work has relied purely on our memory. As we transition into an architecture where your identity is an immutable cryptographic artifact tied to your physical presence and intent rather than a string of text, how does that redefine our relationship with digital trust?
It's a huge shift in how we view ownership and identity.
When there are no longer any passwords to forget and no secrets left to steal, the very nature of how we prove who we are in the digital realm changes permanently. It's definitely something to consider for yourself the next time you find yourself forced to add a special character and a number to a password. You'll just forget by next Tuesday.
We've all been there.
We really have. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the status quo of your own digital security, and we'll see you next time.